Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we have yet another scrypt ASIC, yet again coming from Bitmain. This is going to be the U2L9H, and kind of like the name sounds, it is a Hydro L9 essentially. Okay, so we're going to talk about it, we'll look at the specs, we'll look at the pricing, and more so than anything, we'll talk about the ramifications, right? I think that's kind of more going to be the point of this video, just because it's an ongoing trend that we've been talking about, and this is essentially just confirming it, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So here we go. Spot sale of the U2L9H. This is pretty much just like it sounds. It's a hydro version of the L9. Looking at the specs, 27 gigahash, 5,670 watts, 210 joules a gigahash. So the 0.21 joules a megahash, so pretty much right on par. Exact same efficiency as the L9, which is a little bit unusual. Typically, you want to see something maybe a little more powerful, maybe overclocked, or maybe just better efficiency, just because it is hydro versus the air-cooled unit. But this thing is officially on sale now. It did just debut today, this morning, and it's going to ship November 2025. Okay. As far as pricing goes, they told us $349 a gigahash, and give or take about 9,500 bucks. Okay, which something unusual here. They typically have their price and then typically the after coupon price, which is more the street price. In this case, they didn't list that price on there. It is just that flat price, which hopefully they start doing more. Not a fan of the whole coupon BS, but so as far as what's notable, just one thing to understand, I always get this question when we talk about the hydro videos. Understand that this isn't just plug and play. Understand this is going to be 3-phase requirement. So if you're in the US, you're going to need like a more industrial setup. If you're outside of the US, this is not just going to be plug and play. You're going to need the cooling infrastructure for it. Okay, so just make sure you understand that's a big additional cost. And it's not going to be worthwhile for just like onesies or twosies, right? Realistically, this is meant more for big bulk orders, people who have the infrastructure for it. Although it is possible to run 1 or 2 units or just a handful of units. AntRack does have, or Bitmain does have their AntRack. Currently the V2, that is costly. I mean, you can see here, again, it's only worthwhile if you're going to definitely do this thing and have more than a single unit. Obviously, for single units, it's not going to be worth it. For example, the new V2 holds 4 of those things, 4 of the 2U hydro cooling units, and it's about $9 grand. Okay, so there is definitely cost there. Although over time we will see more and more aftermarket. Hopefully that's going to eventually bring the price down. Again, typically this is more like container setups, more large scale setups, right? There's not really a whole lot of infrastructure for like onesies, twosies. Although there are some, right? Lian Li is one of the few that has had something. This thing has been out for a long time, but they do have one for actually a single unit, right? So something I'd recommend, or performs well, who freaking knows, right? Again, this is a very limited use case. Over time, I can definitely see more things coming. I could definitely see more like, you know, single phase units coming down the line, just because, I mean, it's been pretty clear that this is going to be the future. Maybe it's only on the large scale. Maybe it's not going to be for us plebs. But for me, especially a person who's in a hot climate or you're in a desert-like climate, it's kind of appealing, right? Just because, again, it does get rid of a lot of the inconveniences with trying to cool the unit. Again, it's louder, it's noisier versus something hydro is just a lot quieter. It's a lot easier. You're able to control the environment. Because, again, one of the bigger killers of ASICs, on top of just the use, the heat, is dust, sand, a lot of those issues that come with air cooling units, right? Versus in this case, it can be completely sealed. You can have it completely isolated in the garage. So just something to consider. So again, this is kind of why we're following it a bit, just to keep track of the trends. As far as like profitability and such, of course, it's going to be ridiculous, right? So again, we're going to look at it at a 7 cent kilowatt hour, because again, people who are purchasing this unit, it's going to be industrial, right? It's not going to be necessarily for the plebs. So about $35 a day, $10 a day in electric, so about $25 per day profit. So pretty substantial when we compare it to some of the others, because again, it's not the first hydro unit. As we compare it to the others, again, they did just announce the L9 Hydro 6U, which is a completely different thing. This looks like it's going to be self-contained. Looks like the cooling itself is all going to be 1 unit. So this is realistically a different beast, but I mean, guaranteed they're also going to make an L11 Hydro, just a 2U also, right? This is just going to be the first iteration that comes out. But when we compare it to their actual competitors, which comes from Volkminer, they do have their D1 Hydro. The efficiencies where it's a big game changer, right? So it's 0.28 joules a megahash versus the 0.21 of the L9 Hydro. And then even elphapex, their DG Hydro 1, again, it's on the previous gen. Expect to see a DG Hydro 2, though, coinciding with the new release of the units. But you can kind of see the massive difference. Okay, and especially considering that the price is pretty similar. Like, for example, the Volkminer D1 Hydro, it's in the 10 to 12K range. Again, this new guy being under 10K. And then the DG Hydro 1 being like $9,000, which again doesn't make sense, right? So again, they're kind of forcing the competition to have to lower their prices. Just again, it's not going to make sense, right? At least until they release their updated versions. And then we'll see where they price those. There is also the DG1S, which is their server one, which again, same efficiency. It's just exactly half of the DG Hydro one, right? Which is kind of an oddball unit. But again, it's like, why would you go with any of those with this guy coming out? Okay, so the main interest we had here is what have we kind of been speculating these past 6 months because of Litecoin and Doge's hash rate being so high. It's an insane amount of units that is not likely retail, it's industrial mining. Okay, so this essentially, who is it going to go to? Those industrial miners. Who's probably already been mining on something like this? Those industrial miners. What is potentially a lot of the current hash rate that's on the network now? Potentially these things that have been on, and these are just the leftovers from what's left over of those batches, right? Because we already know the L11's coming out. They have an L11 Hydro already also. Okay, so the big theming here is that it's the hash rate is just going to continue to skyrocket. Okay, so just make sure you understand that, especially if we do go into the bear market in these like 6 to 9 months, maybe longer, maybe we don't, right? It really just kind of depends on your viewpoint, but you really got to factor that in, that the hash rate is going to go up significantly even from where we're at right now. Okay, so how significantly? We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see, but we do know there are more things coming. There are things that have already been planned. As far as catalysts for Doge, there are quite a few of those. Okay, so one, I don't know if you guys saw that post we did the other day. House of Doge signs off on a $200 million Doge treasury, which would be chaired by Musk's lawyer, Alex Spiro. So Elon hasn't fully said he's involved in it, but I mean, it's his lawyer that's going to be doing this, so take a wild guess. So something notable there. elphapex did also announce a partnership with Doge Hash. So we're proud to announce a strategic partnership with Doge Hash Technologies, North America's first large-scale pure-play Dogecoin mining company. The collaboration marks a defining step toward building mining infrastructure that is efficient, decentralized, and designed for long-term resilience. The agreement was finalized during elphapex's global sales gala in Hong Kong, underscoring both companies' shared vision for scrypt mining at institutional scale. Doge Hash Technologies currently operates more than 2,500 elphapex DG1 plus miners. Okay, so again, just more on the institutional front, although realistically, not necessarily worried about, this is why we weren't too concerned with like elphapex, Volkminer releasing those hydro units. Obviously, those are going to be for institutions or large-scale miners. Doesn't necessarily have to be them, but anything large-scale. The reason we weren't super worried is because of their production capacity, right? Even like 2,500 miners in the grand scheme of things isn't really much, even if it's like 10 grand. The concern is when we're getting to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 units in a single location, or just purchase orders, right? Which we know Bitmain has that type of capacity, has that type of potential, has that type of volume. Okay, as we've like talked about with this increase in hash rate, it is an insane amount of hardware that it was just very likely that it's not just retail, that a lot of it is institutional interest. Okay, and okay, so the main concern here would obviously be over time, hash rate is going to continue to go up, yield is going to go down potentially. We don't know to what scale, but I think the bigger thing and why it's such a big thing if this is institutional interest is if it's things like with this partnership with elphapex where it's a pure Doge play, they're literally mining it and they're hanging on to the Doge, maybe they do a Doge treasury of some sort, that's one thing. But if it's companies like Mara, Riot, Hut 8, whoever it may be, whoever decides to join in, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be selling that Doge they're mining, that Litecoin they're mining for BTC or for cash, whatever it may be, similar to what Mara did with Caspa. Okay, so again, the biggest reason we're kind of a little concerned here for the price action is that sell pressure because, and again, if they are doing that, and typically a lot of them do it extremely aggressively and extremely just either monthly, sometimes quarterly, whatever it may be, but it is a ton of sell pressure which can hinder its price performance in the long term, right? And realistically, this is one that has been doing okay, right? It had that pump in November and it's been doing okay since then, but just understand that if we do go potentially into like crypto winter, into like a bear market, even if it's somewhat extended, even if it's 3 to 6 months down the line, understand how rough things can get, right? So even if we're looking at an L9, for example, these are just rough numbers because, again, you have to factor in the merged mineable coins, all that good stuff. But just from Dogecoin, it's about 87 Doge per day, even if a third of the hash rate goes offline, right? Because currently, again, easy math, we're at about 2.89 petahash. We can call it 3. We know that 2 of the petahash is from more modern hardware, right? So there is going to be the argument that when shit does hit the fan, Dogecoin goes down to 10 cents, goes down to 5 cents. A lot of the older hardware will be unplugging, right? So like L7 and older, essentially, will most likely be unplugging, obviously dependent on how much hash rate stays on, etc., etc. But even then, that's still going to leave 2 petahash, which again, we were only at a petahash, right, prior to this new gen of units coming out. So the fact that we are going to be at 3, potentially going to be at 3.5, maybe as high as 4 by the time this mania phase ends, because again, if we do get our little altcoin season, whether it's in the next 3 months or the next 6 months, I wouldn't be surprised to see this number go make it all the way up to 4 petahash. Okay, so then at that point, it would kind of stay where it's at right now at what we're looking at, right? If we go up to 4, subtract the 1 from all the old hash rate going off, and it's still going to be 3 petahash of more modern hardware, right? So it's going to be a game of who has the cheapest electric and who has it. These industrial guys, right? A lot of the times they're sub 5 cents, 3 cents, 2 cents, 1 cent, depending on where they're at globally. Okay, so just make sure you understand that if you were to just do a rough estimate, let's say 6-9 months down the line, you should kind of know what to expect. Okay, so if we look at Doge's price, obviously it's been hovering between 15 to 25 cents this whole time. Hopefully we do have a peak. I think that'll give us a window into how much it'll potentially drop, right? If Dogecoin, because of the ETFs, other catalysts, goes bananas and goes up to over $1 or something, then that kind of changes things. But if it does struggle to even reach the previous all-time high, which was like 74 cents, let's say only makes it to like right under there, 60 cents or so, that leads me to believe that the bear market, we're probably going to be seeing similar numbers, where it's hovering from like 5 to 10 cents for those like 2 to 3 years. Okay, so if you're looking at the L9 and you're looking at it making about 80 something Doge per day, right? So let's say it's even 86 Doge per day like it is currently. So 86 multiplied by each Doge being a nickel, what does that give us? About $4 a day. Okay, and if you're electric at a more residential rate, let's say it's 10 cents, your electric's going to be about $8 a day. That changes the game quite dramatically. Okay, so just understand that. Make sure, again, anything can happen, but when we look at these things, I try to look at things like more worst case scenarios, right? Like realistically, we have no idea. Okay, because again, if Doge does happen to rip, does happen to go crazy, then it gives me more confidence that maybe the current prices, it can maybe stay in that range. Maybe instead of being 5 to 10, 10 to 15 or 15 to 20 cents, and that definitely changes the dynamics. But if Doge does struggle to get like above 70 cents, or if it's just a quick wick like this, that also doesn't give me confidence, right? What would be better if it's a consistent uptrend, maybe stays in that range, that'd be nice. But if it does like what it's done previously, where it's a wick that only lasts a couple of weeks, that's not necessarily good for longevity. Okay, so this is why we want to pay attention to the hash rate, how crazy it's been going, and specifically who's mining. Where's this hash rate coming from? If it is primarily institutional people, and it is primarily institutional people who are doing it with the intention of swapping over to Bitcoin, which is why I'm not a fan of that narrative. I believe it's elphapex that was pushing that narrative this past year, that this is a good alternative, even if your goal is BTC. Obviously, it kind of is, but I mean, if this is getting in the hands of institutional people, this is not good for Doge in the long run, right? Because again, you're gonna just see constant sell pressure, and that's not what you want, right? During this bear market, obviously, who cares? It's where money go up, we're doing that thing. But if you're a person who's trying to buy hardware now, especially if you're starting from scratch, like if you're going from scratch and you're starting to go in now, you need to kind of understand these things, right? It really depends on your scale. It depends on your level, how long you've been mining. If you're a person who already has a large farm, it's a different story, right? You're playing a different game than the person who's trying to get in now. Like, okay, this price drop, it's 5K. Just understand where we're at in the cycle, what's going on, and kind of what to expect here, okay? So, again, none of this, we don't know. We're just speculating. But again, looking at the signs of the reason we're kind of like, when you calculate how many units this is, when it's like 100,000 units, that's not all retail, right? Especially considering the sentiment these past 12 months hasn't been the greatest. Obviously, the L9 has been one of the more popular ones. That scale is a ridiculous amount. Okay, so for me, this is all just confirming it. It's confirming what we've been talking about these past 6 months, that a lot of it is most likely institutional driven. And again, for me, this is a unit that has already probably been out in the field for quite a while. I wouldn't be surprised if quite a few of these farms have been experimenting with this thing. Maybe that was the initial batch. And in my opinion, this is probably just the leftover stuff, right? Because we already know the L11 is coming, right? So just kind of consider those things, and this is kind of why we're following the grand scheme of things, right? Just because, again, I kind of want to know where things are going, and it kind of helps us make predictions of kind of what to expect. Hopefully, I'm completely wrong. Hopefully, there's no institutions, and it is all retail, and a lot of the retail dumps whenever the market dumps. But, I mean, looking at the signs, looking at what's going on, I think the biggest indicator is what Doge's price does. Like, if it really struggles to go to, let's say, even 60 cents, that's going to kind of tell us something. Okay, another thing to watch is what is going to be one of the easiest ways to boost the profitability on any of the scrypt ASICs for these manufacturers to have their little scam wick to essentially sell units before the bull market or altcoin season kind of ends. It's to pump the hell out of these little merge mineable coins. Okay, so for me, if we start seeing these little merge mineable coins, whatever out of the 20 or whatever there are, when you start seeing some of them mysteriously pump out of nowhere, because again, they're very small market caps, they're going to be extremely easy to manipulate. And what's that going to do, right? It's going to make the profitability of this thing, even if Doge is struggling. I mean, because obviously to pump Doge, it's such a massive coin, right? So don't expect to see a Bitmain scam wick pumping Doge, because again, it's a $32 billion market cap. Okay, it is a massive coin. It's ranked number 9. But what would be an easy way to drive interest and to drive the price of the profitability go up is to pump those merge mineable coins, which in some cases have essentially no liquidity, no volume, no market cap. So it's not going to take much to have a drastic effect on it, right? Because on paper, it's going to look super profitable. Although realistically, good luck trying to sell those coins when there's no liquidity. But when you look at these mining calculators, it's going to look extensive, right? Especially because there's so many of them. Just to me, that's going to be an indicator. If we see any of those sporadically pump, especially if they're like coinciding either at the same time or one pops off and another one pops up a month later, be extremely speculative. To me, that's going to be the sign that they are trying to wrap things up. So, again, more speculation. We don't know, but to me, thinking in the business mentality, that is the number one way to sell ASICs, right? Is to pump up that profitability. And specifically with scrypt, just because of the merge mining aspect, which is unique to them, there's so many of those shit coins that would be extremely easy to pump. So again, just looking at indicators. So that's kind of one thing I'm eyeing. Obviously going to be eyeing the hash rate to see how much it goes up, especially by the end of the year, right? If these things are supposedly shipping November, again, I would speculate that a lot of this increase was probably those units already. Those are just the leftovers. But when the L11 comes out, the DG2 comes out, by end of year, I wouldn't be surprised to see 4 petahash. Okay, so we'll see. We'll see the extent of it. Definitely following things, but understand where we're at in the market and understand kind of what to expect potentially, right? Could be completely wrong. Hopefully the L9 stays profitable for the next 3 to 4 years, and it honestly probably will be like break even or better. But just understand that if shit hits the fan, what do you think is going to happen to those prices, right? So again, it's up to you how you play the game, what your goals are, what your lecture rate is, etc., etc. But again, you want to have every advantage you can. And if you're at home and you have more than a 10-cent kilowatt hour, you may want to consider hosting. You want every advantage possible, just because of who you're going to be competing with, which again is going to be things like this. Okay, so again, typically we don't focus too much on a lot of these hydro units, but specifically here, we want to look at the ramifications and what it's kind of signaling to us. Okay, let me know in the comments, guys. What do you guys think? Do you guys think I'm too paranoid? Do you guys kind of agree? Do you guys see something similar? Because again, when we broke down the amount of units, I forget the exact amount. It was something like 80,000 units, 90,000 L9s that were added. Something to that extent. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I am out.